All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out here, just like you and just like me. All right, so in the aftermath of the Eric Clapton interview, I like to do recaps because these interviews to me, um, I can't believe, number one, that I get to talk to Eric Clapton, okay? Because there's no logical reason why Eric Clapton would do an interview with me. It's just, there's no logical reason. But I've started to get used to it a little bit. I wasn't as nervous as I was at the beginning when he said, "Hey, let's do an interview. Let's do a little chat." I mean, he likes to just have a conversation. A lot of people are waiting for me to. And this interview, I asked him more specific questions. Usually, the conversation just goes wherever. I mean, we did the music, we did the foreign policy, we did some rock and roll Hall of Fame stuff, which is always a great topic based on what the Hall of Fame has become. And I basically wanted to know if he'd show up for JJ Cale. And he's like, they haven't even thought about JJ Cale, which is 100% true. But the big question that people ask me every time, why you, of all people? I mean, if a Rick Beato, right, who has, I don't know, well over 1 million subscribers. I haven't checked recently, but he's got a big platform. And if he did the interview with Clapton, it'd be over like 2 million views by now. This morning I checked, it's at 10,000. 10,000 views, right? So, but Rick kind of is a little bit on the establishment side, although he does rebel about certain things, but he certainly likes to give certain styles and certain people. I listen to him sometimes and I'm like, you give these people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm talking about the quality of music and how it's created. And he's definitely an inside baseball musician type commentator. So he knows things about music that I wouldn't know if I was quizzed. You know, if this were Jeopardy, I would take the lowest category, the lowest dollar amount, and I'd probably get the question wrong. So if he had done the interview and if a number of other people had done this interview, it would have been super viral. I'm doing it and it's somewhat viral for me. But a lot of people aren't going to see this interview. I think the last one I did was between 200 and 300,000 views, which is pretty darn good for this channel. But any other channel, that's probably over 1 million. Talking with Eric Clapton, because he doesn't do interviews. He just doesn't do them, and he doesn't trust anybody. And so I've said this before, I stuck up for Eric Clapton when every media outlet on this planet was excoriating the guy because he didn't want to make people get a QR code to go to one of his concerts. None of this stuff, by the way, is aging well. None of it. All of the music that Eric and Van Morrison did during that time frame, they were 100% right. And it saddens me to think that there are no apologies. There are no op-eds being written about how damaging that period of time was. There are a few people, independent types, but the national media is silent, like it didn't even happen. But then they'll report on, okay, there's a new variant. And then they'll tell you, hey, can you believe it? They've already formulated a concoction for this variant. I'm like, how do they do that? How do they know how something is going to develop and how to predict how it's going to develop, and then to make something to stop that from doing harm to you? It's, you know, the worst prognosticators in the world, right? People who make predictions and are wrong all the time, false prophets, however you want to describe them. Those people have more credibility than the people who make this stuff. That's my humble opinion about it. Because they're telling you they know how to make something predictively to stop something that, quite honestly, they don't even know how that's going to affect you. But yet they're telling you have to go and do it. And so Eric Clapton who did this twice, by the way. People say, oh, he refused to do it. He did it twice. I like to remind everybody because after a while, the news media was just saying he's anti this, he's anti that, he's hesitant. No, I'd be really hesitant if I had a problem like he had. I'd be super hesitant to the point where I would never do it again. And I'm sure he's never doing it again. And so everyone is saying, hey, Eric, you've got quite a platform. You need to get on board. You need to tell everybody how great this is. You need to be a spokesperson for the medical industrial complex. Get up, stand up, talk about it, And Eric wasn't having it at that point. This was affecting his livelihood for a while. And then when he came out saying, look, I'm not going to make people who want to attend my concerts jump through hoops so they can see me. They just go, and we all just take our chances with our natural God-given ability to deal with this, which apparently was more effective than these products that they were dishing out left and right and telling people that they had to do it. I mean, the lockdowns alone, forget it about even the administration of this, whatever you want to call it. I want to call it a potion or a concoction, right? But I don't know what to call it on some days. I get mad because a lot of people are just pretending, hey, a lot of people just didn't know. They didn't know. And so everybody was scared. So the first thing you do is just trust the government when you get scared, right? Just trust them. And Van and Eric said, no, I don't trust them. I don't think they have my best interests at heart. So I was defending Eric and Van and guys like Travis Tritt. There are a few of them out there. Aaron Lewis, I think, pushed back a little bit. Ace Frehley. I mean, there are a couple of people out there I might have forgotten, but I remember all the people who were just browbeating every single day in the media. This is what you have to do. The people who refuse to do this, they're traitors. They hate other people because they refuse to do this. Yeah, it is kind of a selfish act to say I'm not going to allow you to do this to me. That's kind of a selfish act. It's an act of preservation. Kind of reminds me of like an Ayn Rand philosophy. Like what do they call that? Protectionism or pragmatism? Objectivism. All right. My objective is to not die. All right. So call that crazy, but I'm going to go my own way on this and say I'm not doing what you're wanting me to do. And Clapton, he's the man. He was the poster man for rebellion, just total rebellion. Like he brought the 60s back, like the late 60s, he brought it right back. And nobody saw that. Like Van Morrison, he's a rebel now. These guys are the rebels, right? It wasn't David Crosby, who we lost recently. Nope, wasn't him. It wasn't Graham Nash. Wasn't Stephen Stills. No, none of those guys said, hey, you know what? We didn't trust the government then. Why should we trust the government now? That would be an easy jump, right? But nobody, Neil Young, no. Neil Young is even worse in the other direction. He embraces all of this stuff. And the warmongers, and we can go down the list of things. You may not agree with Eric's views on what's happening in the Middle East and who he believes is the bad guy in that. And we can have civil discussions about that. I think all of us want peace. I've said that from the very beginning. But see, the music industry, they're not really invested in anything anymore. In the old days, they used to have these no nukes concerts and stuff. Jackson Browne and all of his buddies. We didn't want the world blowing up. And everybody thought, oh, what a bunch of wussies. What a bunch of liberals are afraid of nuclear weapons. They were right. They were right. And when you're right, you say, okay, you guys, I didn't think at the time. I thought it was just, this agenda that you had trying to just overhype what was happening, but they were right. And here we are today, still worried about the same things, now with more nuclear weapons. I haven't seen anyone do a no nukes concert, right? Haven't seen that recently. Be interesting if that came back. Um, it's the same war that we're fighting against the medical industrial complex. So you've got the medical, you've got the military industrial complex, you've got the media industrial complex. All of these things are real, all right? And we're losing. And Eric Clapton, one of the things that he said during the interview is we're losing free speech. They're locking people up in the UK for posting things online that the government doesn't like. Let that sink in for a minute or two. All right. It could easily happen here in the United States and around the world. So Eric says, hey, I think we're really close to losing free speech. And once we lose free speech, folks, and it's game over, there's no point in anything because they'll lock you up. They'll take you away. They'll ban you. Hence, this is why the algorithm for this particular channel doesn't work all that well. Now, if I had over 1 million subscribers, I notice when your platform gets really big, they play ball with you a little bit because you're bringing people to the platform in huge numbers. And that's huge advertising revenue for the platform. I'm small potatoes. That's why I'm saying if I can get to 100,000, I mean, it's a goal I have. I didn't even think about it a year or two ago. I was like, it'd be cool if I can get to like 30,000 or 40,000. That would be cool. Now I'm thinking, but these numbers though, these could be just dead subscribers at this point, not literally, but people who are subscribed, but they don't watch the channel. They don't get notifications. They subbed maybe a long time ago because there was a topic that I had covered and they said, yeah, but then they found out that I was political or that I liked a certain presidential candidate. Okay, I'm not going to watch this guy anymore because we're so tribal now that we can't pay attention to one another if the politics don't line up perfectly. And so we just throw the baby out with the bathwater. We say, nah, he may have said some good stuff about this over here, but did you hear him talk about, the orange guy? It's just, and there's so much hostility. And I don't know if we're ever going to come back from that. I liked RFK when he was running for president because he was a unifier. He wanted people to get together and fight the system, both left, right. I mean, labels meant nothing. And we just, we disagree on some things, but then we move forward with the big ideas. And I think we're still doing that now. And we shall see what happens here in less than 2 months now. Pretty scary. But as far as the Clapton interview, I thought it was a pretty good interview. I try to stay out of the way. I want him to talk as much as possible because he's the star. I am not the star. I am just some real fortunate dude who kind of failed as a DJ or just decided I didn't want to make $8.25 an hour in 1990. I didn't want to make $8.25 an hour. And even though I did some things like program directing, music directing, and stuff like that, the money wasn't good. And, everything became automated like 15 years later. So I wouldn't have had much of a career, even if I had stuck with it, unless I was a high upper echelon personality, and I never got to that level. So this has worked out better, and I get to talk to famous people sometimes, and I get to just tell folks how I feel. And I don't play music, but I do recommend music, and people appreciate when I do that. So best thing you can do is pre-order a copy of Eric Clapton's new album, Meanwhile. Definitely. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Also, check out Modern Retro Radio online, modernretroradio.com. It's a great internet radio station with real DJs and people who still have a passion for shaking things up a bit, almost like an old school free form FM radio station from 1976. I'm just thinking back to those days and how awesome that was when DJs could do what they wanted to do, and people loved that stuff. Um, I don't think we'll ever see an era like that again. Everything has become, again, part of some complex, the music industry complex, and they basically feed everything down from the central planning location down to the local radio stations, which all sound the same. They, with slight variances here and there, depending on the demographic that they're trying to reach. But I mean, I listen to these stations, are supposed to be the hits of yesterday and today, and they're playing like Don't Stop Believing. It's just the song that's what, 42 years old, 43 years old, and they're playing it next to all their hits because they can't rely on all their hits because all their hits kind of suck. So they keep dipping back into that well. So people will say, okay, I can listen to this. And then they try to brainwash you with some of the Pro Tools and the auto tuning and the chord changes that don't, they do that for like 3 or 4 minutes. The songs are getting shorter, which I've noticed. It's a good thing because the songs are so bad, but they're starting to go back to that 3-minute song rule like they did back in the 60s and 70s. But they're doing it for different reasons now. They're doing it because they know how bad the songs are. So anyway, folks, and nobody has any attention span anymore either. That's why nobody likes guitar solos at concerts. People get bored with guys who can do solos, and it's really stupid because we used to love the solos. We used to love that stuff because you weren't getting that on the record. So when you went and saw somebody play live, you were like, did you see that drum solo? That was insane. I mean, he broke his drumsticks, threw the remnants out to the audience, and picked up a new set and just kept going. I mean, yeah, we're not going to see that too much anymore. So anyway, folks, again, Eric Clapton, thank you for just allowing me to do this. Hopefully he and I will have a chat again sometime. And hopefully people will watch this video. So far, it's doing okay, but I'm not as important as some other folks. And again, if I had put this out there as somebody important, then maybe, I could have just disguised and said, Eric Clapton talks to Eddie Trunk, and it would probably have 2 million views by now. But it's just little old me, Harmless Dave. Thanks again. God bless everyone. Talk soon.